Okay. If I close this box, will it still record? I think so, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So the previous view of validity is that it has many types, such as, any one of you heard about the previous types rather?
Face heard in your video, Dr. Fuad, tapi not really detailed into it.
Oh, okay. I give you half mark for that. No, just joking, just joking. Okay. So we've heard of face validity. We've heard of construct validity. We've heard of predictive validity. Concurrent validity. A few more types. All right. So they treat validity as having multiple types. Okay. That is the previous view, or maybe that is the one school of thought, which is now predominantly, or the predominant school of thought nowadays, if you go to the literature, is that we use this unitary concept. Alhamdulillah, it's always one is always more logical, isn't it, rather than many. Okay. Meaning that validity is just one which is construct validity, and that what we do is we try to find evidence for our validity, and that is the one which is classified into the 5 areas by Messick, and as well as you can have it. Another angle is the Kane is asking us to look at our assumptions in validity at 4 different levels: the scoring, the generalization, extrapolation, and the decision levels. Okay. So both of them subscribe to this unitary concept of validity. Okay. This just to know the difference between these two school of thoughts. Okay. All right. So before we go on to reliability, any questions? Last questions about validity?
So fun.
So okay lah, not last question lah. You can always ask and discuss things after this. Okay, let's go to reliability, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Ashraf, what do you understand by reliability?
Reliability is something that we can rely on something. For example, I have a car, then if I want to buy a car, I want to buy a car that is reliable. Means
All right.
that we can use it over time and not having much to fix it, to repair it. So, and also, yeah, it can, I mean, we don't have to, yeah, I can use it all the time, and also not much to fix it. And yeah, maybe other costs of petrol is also we consider to be low,
All
things like
right.
that.
All right. Okay. So you did mention that you can use the car over and over again, right?
Yes.
Keep on repeating every day. You start the car, it will work. You just put in the key and start the car, it will work. So the concept of time and time again, it is still working. So you say the car is reliable, right? So that's a good start. Ashraf is always the one who will bring the concept and give an analogy. I think that's a good way of making people understand. Okay.
This is how I
So
teach my kids.
all right, good. Okay. So let's work on that concept a bit more. Okay, so this is this is in another way we call consistency, isn't it?
Yes.
And therefore, now we understand, let's bring this concept now to assessment. So now we ask ourselves, let's say we use an assessment format or assessment tool. Now we're looking at the tool level, the format level. Let's say an essay or any other tool. Is this tool reliable? Is it consistent? So what does it mean? We mean that if I use, let's say, an essay I give to Ashraf on one particular subject or one particular course, I get X results. Okay, his result is X. And if you can imagine it, I use the same essay again on him another time. Okay, let's assume that he has forgotten the previous exam, blah blah blah, and I will get a similar result. And again, it is constant. Therefore, if you look at the first line, reliability refers to the consistency of scores or decisions from assessment. Okay, and if you look at the reference, it is Lord and Novick 1968.
Lama.
Yeah. So this concept of reliability is still the same, right? From the old times, yeah, 1968. So that's the concept of reliability. How can we trust these results or not? And if you look reliability, if you look at Messick's evidence, sources of evidence, right? Can we all remember again? First is content, right?
Then
Second,
respond process.
okay, response process. Third,
Internal structure.
Internal structure.
internal structure. Fourth,
Relation to other
Relation.
variables. Relation.
relation to other variables, right? Relationship to other variables. And fifth,
Consequence.
consequences, right? Okay, so we said yesterday that under internal structure is reliability. And therefore, that's why I say reliability is under validity. So validity is the big umbrella under which reliability is there. Okay. And one thing that we need to understand is that you when you talk about validity, and you look at the evidence, one of the evidence is reliability. So we say reliability is an evidence of validity, but you can have, so this is one way, you can have a valid assessment will have a reliable assessment under it. Okay, but if you have a very good reliability of an assessment, you cannot say it is, you cannot automatically say that it is valid. You follow?
Yeah. Understand.
Ashraf, okay?
Okay, can.
Okay. I think Dr. Oroch would have heard this before. Okay. So we say an instrument can be a valid assessment should have reliable assessment instruments. However, a reliable assessment instrument does not necessarily mean that the assessment is valid.
Yes.
Okay. So if that is understood, no question, I can process. Okay. So if you find that this area is already familiar, then please tell me. Then we can go quickly. Yeah. What I'll do is I'll go through the pages, the chapter, and I will touch on things which I think are important. Okay. The theoretical framework, classical test theory, things like that. If you have the time, you look at it again. Okay, it's good if you understand the theoretical basis, right? But now that okay, let me turn on the chat. Maybe it will help Dr. Urush if he has internet problems. No, where's the chat button? All right. Okay, Dr. Urush, if you have questions or and the mic is not very working, please use the chat. All right. Okay, so the basis of understanding reliability is consistency. Why do I like to use red? Maybe the teacher in me. Consistency, right? So, if you look at the chapter, it divides it into test-based,
Rater-based.
yeah, rater-based. Dr. Farhana ni mesti dia dah buat nota semua dah ni. You've already made your notes, everything, right?
Saya lebih ingat kalau buat nota. Baca je dia.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think the Dr. Farhana is the conscientious one. Dr. Ashraf is the abstract one. Okay. Just my assumptions. So I can test. I have to test the validity of my assumptions later. Okay. So back. Let's go here first. Okay. Test based. So how do we look at consistency in test based? Test based means looking at assessments which the candidate can answer and indicate yes or no, true or false, or maybe which is the correct answer, right? A or B, and therefore they will get marks based on this. Maybe yes, no is 1 mark or 0 marks. True, false also the same. Maybe the single best answer, sometimes if they get it right, they get 5 marks. If not, 0. All right. So, I think it's logical that one way to see consistency is to repeat the exam, like our example just now with Dr. Ashraf, sitting for the same exam. So people actually do that. They test, retest, test, and they retest. Okay. So in the first test, they will get marks. Okay, the student A, student B, student C, until Z, and A gets this mark, B gets this mark, C until N, and then they retest again after some time, and they correlate. Okay, and they will get this correlation. And if we remember our discussion just now, correlation is not just now, yesterday. Correlation, what's the range?
-1 till
minus
+1.
Okay, -1 to 0 to +1. Okay, and so we say the test is reliable if it is yeah, I mean you get, for example, the correlation is 0.8. So the reliability, the retest reliability is 0.8. It's quite straightforward, isn't it?
yeah.
Okay, hold on. Okay.
Dr. Fuad,
Yes.
just want to clarify something. So that's mean the test base, the assessment is only the one that is selected type, not the essay, the constructive type. We only find the reliability on that. Is it?
Yes and no. Hold on. Even if you have essay questions,
Mm.
uh, uh, as long as I would say so. Yes, yes. Because if you look at page 41 under the title reliability indices raters, the author says up to this point, the focus has been on assessment instruments producing data that can be objectively scored as correct or incorrect. Okay, so this looks at assessments in which only one rating, as opposed to rater based. There are sometimes in essay you practice whenever in the rating there it involves two or more raters. Then you will go for rater based assessment. Even if it's is rater based, for example, an OSCE, in which you have station 1, station 2, station 3, all right? And in each station, only one rater. Then you still can use this
Yes.
method, test-based methods.
I see.
But if you have the rater more than one, then you talk about inter-rater reliability, because there are more than okay. However, I will clarify that with my colleagues and confirm with you later. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So test retest is straightforward. However, I think you can imagine the problem, because we need time, and you have to do it twice. So you do it once, they have to wait maybe sometimes until the students forget, and you have to assume that they have forgotten, blah blah blah. So how do we overcome this? So some bright guy said, why not you have in one test, for example, test A, you have question 1 until, let's say, question 100. Okay. Why don't we take half of this and get the results like above, and we correlate it with the other half? For example, this is Q1 till Q50. This is Q51 till question 100. So we get the results of the same students here, results of the same students, just based on this exam, right? And we correlate. Okay. And this leads to the second method of reliability, of calculating reliability. which is the split half.
Doctor, so the question, let's say question 1 and
Uh-huh.
also question 51 is assessing the same thing, right? It's just a different question, but it
Good question.
might have the same answer.
Yes. The assumption is the whole test is assessing the same construct.
I see.
Okay. Okay, but the problem is also, there's also a problem here. So this overcomes the previous problem, which is you need the time, so that will incur expenses, blah blah blah. So by using split half, just one administration, you can calculate the reliability. Okay, but it produces problems on its own. And what is that problem?
How to really split it into two?
Okay. Farhana has been reading. Okay. So it says that a central question for split half reliability is how to split the test into meaningful halves. Do you take 1 to 50 here and 51 to, or you take 1, 3, 5, 7, and all the odd numbers here and all the even numbers here, or you, how do you do that? Okay. Maybe related to Ashraf's question, and also how to do it fairly. Okay, so another bright guy, I think his name was Kronbach. Okay, he said, let's calculate, let's do all the possible ways and take the average sum. So that's the general idea. Okay, so he said one solution is to split the test in every possible half and then to aggregate their score estimates. So that is the premise, and that produces the third method, which is the internal consistency, the Cronbach. Cronbach's, he called it alpha. So we say Cronbach's alpha. All right. So this one, you can, if you're interested, you can look at the formula, blah, blah, blah there. But now we just, for me, I just leave it to the software. Okay. If you look at SPSS, there's a very, it's just a simple way. And even Excel, if you look at one of the videos in your e-learn, it teaches you how you can calculate reliability using Microsoft Excel.
Yeah.
Have you had a chance to go through?
Yes.
Okay.
Dr. Fuad, for SPSS, this is we learn by ourselves, or later we will have class on this, maybe next semester or other semester, or learn ourselves?
You will have classes, but not under student assessment. But you will have maybe in your research, things like that, how to calculate reliability using Excel and using SPSS. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So in a nutshell, those are the three methods. What's important for us to remember? Let's go back to black. Maybe you want to ask, so what value reliability should we take as good? It is mentioned here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Farhana, maybe you would like to tell us?
If 0.9 is very reliable, which is important for certification or high stack assessment, and
Alright, so
0.9 and above lah, nearly 1.
yeah.
Most high. Then it's next for the moderate level of stack, for example, maybe summative and semester exam, 0.8 to 0.89. And for low stack, 0.7 to 0.79. Low stack level.
Okay,
And below
so
the
this is
0.7, we try not to aim for it.
okay. So these are the values in which we aim for. If it's a very high stakes exam, like maybe final year 5 professional exam, maybe it's year 5 professional exam, still you can be satisfied with 0.8 and above because this is undergraduate. Well, but if it's let's say certifying
Postgraduate.
examination for postgraduate, you are producing specialists for the country, blah blah blah. So you would aim for, or you would look for things like this. Okay, but please remember that sometimes in you have to look at the overall reliability rather than just the reliability of MCQ, reliability of the essay, reliability of the OSCE. Sometimes they can be rather a bit low, but when you combine them, they will reach 0.9 or higher.
Is it the
Okay.
same like concept of educational impact, Dr. Fuad? Or is different thing?
What do you mean?
For the instead of looking for the specific assessment reliability, we go for combination and look at the impact. Is it the same?
Well, impact is another angle, but the impact is not under reliability. But I mean, when you calculate the reliability, you can calculate the individual reliabilities of the tools of the all the formats.
Okay.
And sometimes you get low, maybe 0.7 here, maybe even 0.6 here, 0.8 here. But when you calculate it as a whole, you combine the reliability it can be more than 0.9 or similar. Okay, so how do you calculate overall reliability? It guides you there in page. This chapter has an appendix. If you go page 47, supplement, composite scores and composite score reliability. Okay, so it tells you how you want to do it. So perhaps you can, if you have the time, you can extract some data maybe from your own university. Maybe professional one, you have the MCQ 2 papers, OSCE 2 papers, you have long case and blah blah. So you try to go through and see if you can do it or not. Okay.
Okay.
All right. If we go through this, there would simply be too much time. It will take too much time. And for I think the best way this thing is by you making a workshop style discussion. But if also that means maybe it will take one whole morning or just to go through this topic of getting the reliability of composite scores. Okay. So at least you know where to look for. The reference is there. Okay.
Okay.
So far, Ashraf, any questions?
No question, Doctor.
All right. So we are really covering it. Reliability is quite a technical area. So I think it can be quite fast. Okay. So now we look at rater base. Rater base meaning more than one rater. So just now, if you have let's say essay question, which is using raters, but let's say you have student 1, student 2, student 3, student 4, student 5, and you have essay question 1, essay question 2, essay question 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so you have the numbers the results. As long as you have this matrix, then you can calculate the reliability. And if only one rater, then you can use SPSS to calculate Cronbach alpha. But in the essay, let's say you want to do double marking, then you use the intra-rater. Okay. So if now we go to rater based. Reliability indices. All right. So there are three types. Again, it's very technical. Okay. So first is exact agreement. So it says there exact agreement simply takes the crude proportion of agreement between raters. So it gives that, for example, if 7 out of 10 ratings are in complete agreement between raters, the exact agreement statistic would be 70%. So you have rater 1. Okay. So question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4. All right. And this is rater 2. Question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4. So you look at the how many of the questions in which R1 and rater 1 and rater 2 agrees. Okay, their marks given are the same. Okay, this is one way of looking at it, the exact agreement. So like mentioned just now, takes the crude proportion. And this is easier if you can imagine. For each question, the rating is 1 to 5. Meaning, we would take if rater 1 gives 5 and rater 2 also gives 5. So here, take. So we calculate out of this possible 16 instances, how many places where both of them give the same marks. So then we calculate the percentage, and we get the we calculate the ratio. So you have 16 squares here, right? So if it is 8 out of 16, where's the agreement? So we say the inter-rater reliability, the exact. Hello, yes, 0.5. So you can do this for OSCE, for essay, where the rating is 1 to 5. It's very easy. It's quite easy. Okay. What is kappa? Kappa corrects for this. There's a chance agreement. So the basis is that both of them are able to agree that if you find a rater, this is rater 1, this is rater 2, and these are candidates, right? Candidate 1, candidate 2, candidate 3, candidate 4, candidate 5. Okay, so if candidate 1 is good, then we expect a reliable assessment. Both raters will recognize that candidate 1 is good, meaning that both of them will agree. So they must be it must be independent rating. So both rater 1 sees that, oh, candidate 1 is good, so the marks are high, let's say 5. And rater 2 also agrees that candidate 1 is good, he got a 5. Okay, and if the candidate is poor, then both raters recognize that candidate is poor independently. So if, let's say, candidate 3 gets low marks, rater 1, rater 2 also gives low marks. So that's the basis of this looking for agreement, meaning that our rating machine, which is actually the raters, our rating instrument, which is actually the raters. So the raters become like a sensor in the rating machine. Okay, so both our sensors, both our raters are in tune with each other. So so then we get high reliability. That's the sort of the basis behind inter-rater reliability. Okay. So you have kappa also, but kappa now you start to need formula, and basically I leave it to the software. Okay. So you can use kappa, you can use ICC. ICC means intra-class correlation. Okay, and even in this book, all the three is explained in just one paragraph. Okay, so any questions so far in terms of the ways that the types of assessing? So far so good.
So far, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
All right. So the previous discussion looks at the possible ways to calculate. Of course, now you have to be aware that people are talking about other ways, which is the generalizability, which is one whole chapter after this. Chapter 4, generalizability theory. Getting more and more in the literature. However, I think it is not going to be covered in our course. It's quite a specialized area. You are most welcome to have a look and read the chapter later on. And you can always come back and read, because now I think you have this resource. Okay. So what I'm saying is that the ones above are not the only way that we can calculate or get reliability, and there are other ways as well. Okay. Now we go to one area which is standard error of measurement. Dr. Ashraf and Dr. Farhana had a chance to go through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quite clear.
With the help of your video.
Ashraf okey tak? Ada nak tanya tak? Any question regarding standard error?
Tak sempat, yang ni tak sempat lagi, Doktor.
Tak sempat lagi. Oh,
Haven't really
fine.
go through.
Fine. Okay. I think Dr. Urush also familiar with this. We'll go through. We'll go through rather quickly. Standard error of measurement, SEM. For any measurement of students, okay, let's imagine one student A. Maybe his name is, I don't know, Fuad. Okay. You apply MCQ on him, right? MCQ, and he gets 51. So you repeat it twice, you get 48. You repeat it third time. So assuming that he has not remembered the questions, you get 60. And you do it all. This is, or let's say, theoretical. What you call it? Thought experiment. Okay, or rather conceptual thing. You repeat it. How often? You repeat it many times, and therefore you get many results. Okay, what do you think will happen if I plot these results in terms of this is the marks and this is the frequency, how often I will get those marks. So 0 is here. Marks is 0 to 100, and the frequency. So low frequency down here and high frequency up here. What do you think will come out in the graph if I plot these numbers? Any guesses?
Within
High frequency.
distributed
What is that distribution?
curve, is it? Curve distribution.
We will get this familiar
Normal distribution.
Curve.
normal distribution. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. So one clever guy has calculated that. So why do we get this? Because this variation in my marks, 51, 48, 60, it varies. But I'm the same person. Why is it why is it differing? Why is it very why do you get these various marks? Why is there a variance?
Because the question
An error.
yeah, student might be forgetting some and improving some from the test.
Okay. The Farhana mentioned also the word error. Because in classical test theory, we assume any marks that a student gets is composed of the true score plus error. So all the calculations is based on this assumption. Okay. So we get this curve, this nice curve, normal distribution curve. And this guy, I don't know who, has calculated that this is the middle one, right? So where is the true score? Okay, so he calculated this formula. The standard error of measurement is standard deviation of this marks. Okay, from this one, the standard deviation times, what do you call this? The root, right?
Good.
One minus the reliability, which you can calculate either using Cronbach or whatever. So instead of this theoretical thing, what we do is that for, like, say, an MCQ test, you get the results, right? The overall results, you get the student marks, you calculate the standard deviation, and you calculate the reliability. Then you know the standard error of measurement. It means that, okay, let's go back to this normal curve. Okay. This is one one standard error of measurement here and one standard error of measurement here. Okay, if you remember our statistic discussion, if one standard deviation to the left and to the right, what's the area that we cover here? It is how many percent? 90, I forgot also. 93%, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. And if you go two standard errors, which is similar to two standard deviations, you cover 90, I forgot, 98.6%, which is related to the 1.94, and that's the relation, Farhana. Okay. So, right. So if you plug in the numbers, standard deviation and reliability, you will get the standard error of measurement. Let's say it is 5 after you put in, right? So this exam, total marks is let's say 100. That's the total. Okay, you get a standard error of 5. Meaning, if a candidate, one of these candidates here, he gets a mark of 50. So how confident are we that his true score is 50? Okay. So we say that we are 90. Where did it mention the percentage? Hold on. Let's say we are 9. I think if it is one standard deviation to the left and right of this mean, it will be 90. I'll check again. 90 something percent. Okay. We are. I think let's say I will check again. We are 93% confident that his true score, his true marks is between 45 to 55. Why? Because the standard error is 5. Therefore, we go back 5 marks. We go forward 5 marks. So his true possible score, 93% of the time, we are sure now, is somewhere in between there. Okay. So if you want to be doubly sure, you extend it twice. From we are close to 98.6% sure his marks is between 40 to 60. Because you are taking 2 SEMs now. But I think what the question is, how is this thing, this SEM useful? There are a few other, it says the implications. SEM can be multiplied by 1.96 to obtain the 95% confidence interval. Okay. So it's 95% if it's 1. Okay, here 95%. I'll recheck again, because in this book the explanation is, it doesn't mention about the area of confidence. Okay. However, I have I think there's one illustration of the use of SEM, is that let's say an exam has a cutoff for the pass mark is 50. Oh no, let's take Ashraf punya. Ashraf's passing mark was 60, right? Okay, Ashraf. Okay. So you tell your candidate passing mark is 60. However, in the meeting, you review the results. There were a few candidates whose marks were 58, 57,
Borderline.
Borderline, yeah. Maybe 59.4. Okay. Of course, this is real life examples because people go through this mark before they decide to endorse the result, right? Okay, I have gone to one when I was in Australia last time, many years back doing my masters. I went to this Royal Australasian College of Surgeons, I think. So what they do is that for that particular exam, which that particular group has gone through, they calculate the SD, the standard deviation, and they calculate the reliability, and they get the SEM, the standard error of measurement, and because they give benefit of the doubt to candidates that because they consider all examinations have error, and therefore our examinations also will have error. No matter how good you construct your questions, there will be error. So what they do is that they will pass candidates whose marks are 60 minus I forgot whether 1 SEM or 2. Let's take 1 SEM. 1 SEM. So let's say the SEM is 1.5. Okay. So those whose marks are 60 minus 1.5, that makes it 58.5, right? So candidates who have got marks between 58.5 and above will pass the exam. Because they say the true marks, the true scores of candidates, you have 60 here. The true scores will be 60 plus 1 SEM above and 1 SEM behind, right? So there is a possibility that this guy who has got let's say 58.9, his true score is actually here.
Maybe 60 something.
Maybe
because
60
of the error,
something because of the error. So they give the benefit of the doubt, and they will minus 1 SEM, and they will pass all those who is below in this zone.
Okay, that makes sense for me. Okay.
So that's the use of the SEM. You might ask what about those who get 60.5? His true score might be less than 60.
Yeah, possible.
But we say we give the benefit of the doubt.
Yes, still pass.
So we still pass them. So we just consider those below the passing mark. We don't consider those above the passing mark.
Kurangkan
Suddenly
mark.
fail.
So that's the use of the SEM.
I see.
Okay, the standard error of measurement. And you will find this later when we discuss standard setting. Standard setting. So this is a policy decision, not a statistical decision. Some places they say no, we will not use standard error. We will just pass those who is above our decided passing mark. But some places they say yes, if we use the passing mark only, we only 60% will pass. Therefore, if we reduce it according to 1 SEM, we will get, let's say, 80% will pass. So it's a policy decision. Okay, it's a policy decision. The board or those who will are responsible for they will, rather than asking them to go to a borderline viva, which is very
Stressful.
Stressful, and also there's element of element of luck there. So one go to this panel, one go to another panel, lot of problems. So they just resort to and also because this is a nationwide, it's Australian exam, so I don't think it's possible for them to call candidates for viva, whatever. Okay, but they use this standard error. All right. So far, any questions?
So far
Okay.
clear.
Clear,
Alright.
makes sense.
All right, so it makes sense, huh? So
Yes.
there's this budi bicara. What's the term in English? Considerations.
Yeah.
We do use our heart also, not just our mind. We use our heart when we handle students. But we are justified because we say this is error, and there's a chance that his true score is above the passing mark. So we use that. It's not just a blind kindness or pass him. I know this person is good. It's difficult to justify. But if you use this kind of justification, is more logical. Okay.
Mm.
All right. Another important issue, I think, which you will often be asked later on, and maybe this is what you need to advise people, is how to increase reliability. This should be written in stone. Okay. Basically, three things: increase sampling.
Mm.
If there's anything you need to remember from this class, just remember this. That will be good enough. Sampling is related to reliability. The more you sample, the better will be the reliability. So we will touch a bit on this in our next session. After this, right? Or you remove problematic items which introduce error. And how do you know these problematic items? You use item analysis. And inshallah, we will cover item analysis in one of our last classes, maybe the second last or the last class, item analysis. Okay. So why do we have to know item analysis? Because it's related to reliability. The third would be also related to increased sampling, is to combine methods. Okay. So let's take our hypothetical medical school final year. They have theory exam, which is MCQ, essay, right? Final exam. And they have the clinical component, which is OSCE and long case. All right.
Mm.
Sometimes, so let's say you have one or two long cases here. Sometimes you will meet or you will find schools which say they must pass this separately. If they fail the long case, they fail the clinical component, therefore they fail the pro.
Mm.
With just one case. And because we know that that will reduce the reliability, right? So you cannot make a decision just based on one case. So our advice would be no, please, right? Combine the results with the OSCE. Maybe OSCE will contribute 80% of marks for the clinical component, long case 20%. So we go back to the issue of utility, right? Why? Because we need to consider also acceptability, especially if you have a lot of these very traditional clinicians and things like that. They will insist must pass this long case, even though it's just one case. Right. So that one you need diplomacy, you need whatever, you give them data, blah blah blah. Hopefully, they will agree. You need say combine. Why do you need to combine? Because by combining you increase the sampling. And when you increase the sampling, you make better decisions. Right? They say, okay, but they must pass the clinical and theory separately. That's fair. That's fine, because we do not want candidates who are good in theory, but poor in clinical, they still pass the exam, right? So we can agree on that, but you see the clinical component, there is OSCE and there is long case, but a long case is only one case. Then you start to get worried. Say, okay, please combine this. Okay, that's quite okay. Or the theory you see essay, 4 questions. Or like apa ni Farhana's test yesterday, 2 essays. Okay. Then I would say, Dr. Farhana, can you combine this mark with the presentation and whatever, to make a more reliable assessment? Okay. The other things, the Spearman Brown composite scores is what we just now. That is Spearman Brown. In my experience, I have it is one formula you can use to know how many questions would be enough to have a reliability of, let's say, you want a reliability of 0.9, but you got in your MCQ, you got a reliability of 0.78. So your MCQ has 20 questions. How many do you need to get 0.9? So you can use Spearman-Brown formula, but frankly, I have never used this in real life. Yes, Spearman-Brown. That's it in page 43. Okay. But a rule of thumb, okay, if you get questions later on, how many MCQs do you need to get a good reliability? Okay. An easy rule of thumb is that when you reach 100 items, then the reliability will be around 0.9. Hopefully, assuming that the items are good, properly written, etc., etc. Okay, the graph is like this. Okay, this is the reliability. This is the number of questions. Okay, it starts down here. The more you increase the number of items, the higher reliability, until you reach about 100, then it will plateau. This is around about 100 items. More than this, it will not increase it very much, because of you reach the saturation. Okay, so there's no point in but bear in mind, these items meaning individual questions. So you have multiple true false. Each question have 5, right? A, B, C, D, E. That's considered as 5 items.
So it's like this is 20 lah.
Yeah.
20 questions.
But if you use SBA, single best answer, or OBA, one best answer,
Then
each
it'd be
item is
100.
considered as 1. So you say, my God, Dr. Fuad, we have to have 100 questions? Well, then you you think about feasibility. Okay, if the lecturer say, I don't think we can come up with 100, okay, then as many as you can. But you can suggest maybe split into 2 papers. All right. This is paper 1. This is paper 2. In this one is 50 question. If they say students will get tired, blah blah blah. Okay. Split into 2 papers. Or if the issue is we don't have enough questions, our lecturers cannot come up with 100 questions, then we say please combine with some other methods. Maybe the SBA combined with multiple true false. Right? So it's always an issue of what you say, give and take, right? But ideally you need around 100 items to get good reliability. So if they say that the SBA is also part of it, and you have the essay, blah blah blah, and the marks are combined, okay, then we will look at the overall reliability. But on its own, around 100 items is the rule of thumb. There's one book which I have not put up in the resources, which has this graph. Okay. Right. Any questions? Dr. Urush, anything to add? Okay. If not, then right now it's 10:11, right? We'll spend this second session looking at this paper, because I think this paper gives quite a good summary and of utility, as well as the important points in validity and reliability, as well as educational impact. Okay. So this is available in the portal, as well as I think I've given the link to Dr. Urush as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll look at the important points. Okay. This is written in 2005, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2005.
2005. All right. So he or they started off referring to some years ago. This is referring to the paper where they introduced the concept of utility. That was in 1996, I think. Okay. Okay, where they introduce the number of criteria, which now we know that's reliability, validity, blah blah blah, the five things, right? What is important says here, the criteria were weighed according to the importance attached to each of them by a specific user in a specific situation. Okay. So if you call our discussion yesterday, in the example, Dr. Ashraf's exam, which is not a very high stake exam. Okay, so the discussion was different, if you remember. Okay. Dr. Farhana's exam was also not that high stakes. So her methods were a bit different. Okay. But I just remembered, if we consider Dr. Ashraf's exam, use a lot of standardized patients and a lot of help from people who will call the candidates to rate their communication skills, and we get uh, the rating from patients regarding each doctor, blah blah blah. Now that will need thinking about feasibility. For standardized patients, I do not know in your place, but I think in our place last time, maybe this has changed. We pay RM. I think now it's 200.
Yeah, I think similar.
Oh, 200.
For each patient per day. Okay. So in one OSCE, for example, we have 12 stations. 12 stations. So let's say all stations are active stations with standardized patients. So you need 1,200 ringgit. Is it 212? No, 2,400 ringgits per day, and that is just for one station. If you have many, 12 stations. Yes, yeah. So a lot of money considerations there. And coupled with the information that this is a low stakes exam, so Dr. Ashraf will need a lot of convincing to do. Maybe to his colleagues who hold the money, then they will say, Ashraf, are you sure we're going to do this? You have to come up with a lot of money to pay people, blah blah
What do we
blah.
get in return?
What do we get in return? So Ashraf will say, okay, back to the drawing board. Okay, so that's the issue of feasibility there. Okay. And then here, oops, maybe I'll make it smaller. This is already small. So the weights, the weights of the criteria depend on how importance of each of the different criteria, okay, as perceived by those responsible for assessment for a certain assessment situation. So we understand that, right? Okay. So he says that, of course, this utility equation is merely intended as a conceptual model. So don't think this is a mathematical model. Okay. And it's not that all these criteria, or there's only 5 criteria. There are other criteria that you need to be aware of, like transparency, meaningfulness, cognitive complexity, directness, fairness. Okay. If you're interested, then look it up. These are the references. Okay. But it says that the overriding message of the model was intended to convey was that choosing an assessment method inevitably entails compromises. We always have to compromise depending on the stakes of the exam and things like that. And that the type of compromise varies from each specific assessment context. All right. So it mentions here example, high stakes is different. Low stakes is different. Okay. So as medical educationists later on, you have to exercise wisdom. You don't just go say, oh, the theory says this, we must do this. I don't think you will be very popular after that. Okay. Of course, we are not going for popularity only, right? But the wisdom must be there. Okay. So high stakes like a certifying exam, etc. So it's different. So if it's high stakes, then you must tell your superiors, look, this is high stake examination. You must come up with the money if you want reliable exams. You must pay the standardized patients. We need standardized patients. But if this is a semester exam, okay, maybe we can compromise here. Okay. It says here a second corollary, meaning a second implication of this utility formula. Assessment is not merely a measurement problem. Okay. It is also very much an instructional design problem, which includes educational, implementational, and resource aspects. So we think of how best to design our assessment, okay, to achieve certain things, including how to steer our students to behave in the way that we want them to behave. Okay. So that's how the utility formula is useful. Sorry, it's a bit causing you dizziness, huh? All this movement. Okay. So I'll say, says here, the model can also serve as an aid in the process of devising an overall assessment program, not just individual assessment methods. Okay. And now it relates. It brings us to the empirical and theoretical developments. This was in 2005. Okay, right now the developments are more, but in a similar direction. Okay. Uh, Says here, the degree to which the various quality criteria are attained is not an inherent, immutable characteristics of a particular instrument. What does that mean? That means you cannot say multiple true false is a reliable and valid instrument. It is not inherent and it's not immutable, meaning that uh, once you use the multiple true false, then magically everything will be reliable, everything will be valid. You follow?
Yeah.
It depends on how you use it.
Mhm.
That will determine the validity and the reliability. Okay, so it re-emphasize here, there is no such thing as the reliability, the validity, or any other absolute immanent characteristic of any assessment instrument. We cannot ask what is the reliability of the essay paper or essay method. And then we say no, we cannot. We can say it depends on how you use it and things and other things. Okay, and as we have seen, reliability, no, validity especially. Validity depends on so many things. We cannot just say what is the validity of the essay paper. No. Okay. Am I making sense? Is this paper making sense?
Uh, just a bit confusion about the just now the Fuad. Then
Ah,
if we don't focus on like the validity of that assessment, then how should we appoint it?
using the here, meaning that, let's say, for key feature questions, the validity is such and such. It is highly valid, for example. That's what we call the validity, meaning very fixed. It's not saying that what is your evidence of the validity. No, it's meaning that magically if you use KFQ, it will be valid. That's the meaning of the validity.
Okay.
The italics to meaning that it is very specific and it is very rigid, and it follows the KFQ wherever it goes. No.
Okay.
The reliability, the in italics mean a very specific and rigid value. Okay. And you ask, what is the reliability of the KFQ? Oh, reliability of the KFQ is 0.9. No such thing, because if you use the KFQ in one test, it might be 0.9, but if you use in another test, it might be 0.6. Depending on this context, depending on the who the students are, depending on how you construct this KFQ. Is it quality, using according to the quality guidelines? Is it ambiguous or is it clear? I think so many other things.
Understand.
Okay. All right. So let's look at reliability. What are the important points, and what are at that time, 2005? What are the current trends at that time? Okay, so reproducibility again gives some short the definition. Reliability refers to the reproducibility of the scores obtained from an assessment. Now we know what that means, right? So it
Yeah.
says from 0 to 1. Reliability is not from -1. There's no negative reliability. It's from 0, no reliability, or to 1, perfect reliability. Okay. It gives a guideline often 0.8, but now we know that it actually a range depending on the stakes of the exam. Okay. Reliability can be negatively affected by many sources of error. So we have discussed, we can classify these sources of error into CIV, CIV and
See you.
CU, the threats to validity. Okay. This is one issue that I want to explain because this will help us to understand the importance of sampling, which is a domain or content specificity. Anyone have heard of this?
You did explain in the video, Dr. Fuad, about the
Okay. At least I know at least one person is watching my videos.
Ashraf also watch.
No, just joking lah. Don't. Okay. Uh, let's say you. How do we measure in using MCQ or ski or whatever? Is by asking questions, right? By in the multiple true false, in the single best answer, in the essay, all of them are by asking questions, or by observing a performance. We're talking about one performance. One OSCE station. This is one, each question, you go one by one, right? But now we're looking at level of one item. That's the basic unit of an assessment, right? The item. Item. Or maybe in OSCE is one station. Or one long case, one at the basic level. Okay. And we look at their performance. Right? And from that performance, we give a rating. Right? And from that rating, okay, I'll stop there. We give a rating. So that means also in this type of things, we will get a result. Okay. Now, the issue or the concept of domain or content specificity is saying that performance in each of these instances is very much specific to the content or to the domain. For example, if in multiple true false, I ask you a question about causes of chest pain. So A is medical infection. B is whatever, blah, blah, blah. So the students answer true, false, false. Okay. And he did very well. He got all this correct. So maybe for SBA, we ask one question on CA colon. And he got it correct. Essay, for example, we gave one question on whatever. Okay, and he got full marks. Station also. This station is on inserting a continuous bladder drainage catheter. He got low marks. Okay, so the concept of content or domain specificity says that the performance is very specific to that particular topic or that particular area. Okay, and you cannot assume that because he has full marks here on this multiple true false question on what was it just now, causes of chest pain, that he or she is good in cardiology or good in internal medicine, because the performance is specific to that content. Same for this essay performance, same for this OSCE performance in this station, same for all kinds of assessment. There is the issue of content specificity. Okay. Like maybe I meet Ashraf and I ask, Ashraf, do you know where KB Mall is? Ashraf said, oh yes, KB Mall. You take this road and you go and then you meet KB Mall. Then I say, wow, Ashraf is very good in directions. He knows the Kota Baru very well. Can I do that?
No.
No,
Because you are
because
asking not in KB Mall.
maybe
Maybe I'm
you
good,
just
maybe
know.
I'm good, maybe I'm not.
Yes, maybe you what I'm sure is that you know the directions to KB Mall very well, but maybe
But
that's
not
because
necessarily.
you just went there. You just went there yesterday. Okay, but if I ask another question, where is the market? Then you scratch your head. I'm not sure. Oops. So our assumption, our extrapolation is now shaky. So the more questions we ask, then the better will be our generalization about his overall knowledge of Kota Baru. So the same goes in this situation, right? This shows the importance of sampling. And that relates to our discussion just now previously. The more you sample, the better will be the reliability. Okay, because of the issue of domain or content specificity. That is why you say KFQ questions, key feature questions are very good. But then I will ask you, how many questions to ask? 4 questions. 4 questions, that's not enough. Okay, even though it has potential to be very good, but the sampling is not good. Okay, so we will go for we already know, like for MCQ, item wise we need around 100. Okay, so we'll discuss about OSCEs and long cases, and the people have calculated. Okay, so this is the issue of content specificity. Any questions?
So far clear.
So far clear, huh? All right. I need to delete this. You don't want this my scratching, right? my doodles. So I need to delete because then we can read the okay. So it says there the predominant condition. Let's use yellow now. The predominant condition affecting the reliability of assessment is domain or content specificity. That's from the research. Okay, because competence is highly dependent on context or content. Now we understand what this means, right? Okay. So the implication is that we will only be able to achieve reliable scores if we use a large sample across the content of the subject to be tested. Okay. And another important issue is that it says here, if the assessment involves other conditions with a potential effect on reliability, such as examiners and patients, careful sampling across those conditions is equally essential. What does this mean? It doesn't. Okay, let me bring it somewhere which is clearer. Okay, because it's transparent. The so-called principle is that we have to sample across all sources of variability. That's the so-called maxim. I give you an example. Let's take multiple true false exam. Okay. Now, what is variability? Anyone still remember? It is the difference in marks between one candidate and the other. Remember?
Okay.
You got student 1, 2, 3 until how many students? Maybe 100 students. And for multiple true false, you get certain marks. Maybe 7, 20, 30, 45, 15, 60. So many, it varies. That's what we call variability. So why do these marks vary? Any takers?
Multiple factors.
Okay, what are those factors? One is that
one is knowledge.
All right, okay, let's stop there. One is what we hope that these things differ because we have students of varying competencies in the area that we want. So like Farhana said, we hope that these marks differ because we have students of different knowledge. And that is what we want to know, right? Who has the most knowledge on this area that we want, and who has the least knowledge? Those who have more knowledge, we will pass them. Those who have little knowledge, we will fail them. It sounds very cruel, but that's the fact. Okay? But they can also differ from one to another by what other causes, what other factors?
He does not understand the questions.
Yeah.
Response to.
So don't understand question. So that's in the question, right?
Yeah.
Any other causes?
Environment.
Environment. Okay. 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 So you have many sources of variability now. One is the knowledge. One is the question itself. Is maybe ambiguity, maybe difficulty level, blah blah blah. One is the environment. Okay. Let's just assume there are 3 factors. Okay. So we want this variability. That's what we want to know, right? But we don't want the variability coming from questions. And environment, we are not that worried because let's say for this exam, everyone sits in the same hall. So this is out. Okay. So we are these two. So we say sample across all sources. So that is why in the MTF, we sample as many as we can. So we have 100 questions, for example. Then we hope that the sources of variability will be sort of like cancelled because all students will go through all questions. Okay, let's compare that with the OSCE now. What are the sources of variability that is there?
Examiner, rater.
Okay. Let's put the skill first.
Oh.
Okay, that's one source of variability which we want. We want to see who has more skill, who has less skill. That's one source. But like Farhana said, rater is another source. Because rater A is a killer, rater B is a saint, rater C, right? Right? Any other source of variability?
From the patient, maybe?
From the patient or the standardized patient.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, let's stop at there. You might go on and on, but okay. What about the rating?
The marks.
If you
The
just
rubric.
give okay. Okay. For easy, we forget about that. So when we go again, sample across all sources of variability, that means we have to sample all students. This is what we want. Using as many raters as we can, not just one rater per one student. So meaning all students will have to be rated by as many raters as possible. And using as many standardized patients as is possible. Possible meaning feasible, cost effective, blah, blah, blah. Okay? You get the idea now.
Yes.
And that is why what is this? All students meeting many raters and meeting many patients. What kind of exam is this? This is the OSCE, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is why OSCE is in a way, if we say better, we know now that this is dangerous statement. It depends on how we do it. Okay, but because here in OSCE we are sampling across all the possible sources of variability. We say all students will meet all raters, many raters, and using many patients. And compare that with a long case.
Yeah. Oh,
No, still let's look at clinical with the same domain. A long case, one student will meet patient X with examiner Y. The other student meets patient Z with examiner A. That's very possible, isn't it?
Yeah.
yes.
Yes. Therefore, we are not sampling across all, meaning sampling means more times. Because it's only one. Student 1 meets patient X once and with examiner Y once. Okay? Student 2 meets patient Z once with examiner A once. So we are not sampling all the possible sources of variability. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Yes.
So this also related to the issue of sampling. Okay? So this is what he's saying. Other conditions with potential effect on... Oh my God, the battery has run out, I think. No. Reliability. Sometimes this happens. I don't know why. Maybe the so many scribblings it make it the RAM or something. I don't know. Okay. So that's what it means. So the issue of reliability. All right. The predominant condition affecting the reliability of assessment is domain or content specificity, and that relates to sampling. And when we sample, we have to remember to try our best to sample across all sources of variability. Okay? I know this is getting very theoretical, but it will translate to our practice. So we must make sure sampling and this is very frustrating. My pencil is not working. Never mind. Farhana pakai tab juga kan? What do you do? Have you ever have experience in this?
Keluar dan masuk balik. Go out and go in
Oh,
back.
ya ke?
Yeah,
I'll
so that
try.
is okay.
Hopefully, ya. Bismillah. Okay. Go in again. Not working. Never
Okay.
mind.
Ni go out from these notes, Dr. Fuad, not these
Oh,
whole notes. Yeah, or the application. Remove first.
application. Remove first.
Then restart back the notability.
Okay. Tak boleh lah. Okay, never mind. So you just have to be satisfied with my voice. Okay. What's important there, you see, so far this is nothing new.
So far, okay.
Okay. However, what is new is that recent insight that reliability is not conditional on objectivity and standardization. This is something that we need to understand. Okay. It means that even if you standardize everything, like we do in OSCE, it does not necessarily mean that we will get a valid and reliable measurement. Okay, just look at the column, the second column on the top there. Second line. To illustrate our point, let us look at the OSCE. Okay. People think that historically OSCE started as a response to the long case, because in the long case, there are so many, like we discussed this now, right? Students get a chance, they get different examiners for different students and different patients. So they, to overcome this, they say, let's do the OSCE. So you SKU, all students meet all examiners and all patients. Okay. But actually, even though we standardize that, the most important factor in OSCE, which makes it more reliable, actually, is not those samplings. Okay. Although it is important, like what we discussed previously, what is more important, dah boleh dah. Sorry. Okay. What is more important is that there's an abundance of study evidence since shown that the reliability of OSCE is contingent on careful sampling across all clinical content, appropriate number of stations, which generally means that several hours of testing time are needed. So it is the sampling of the OSCE stations, because you have shorter stations, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You can ask more questions in more areas. The content evidence, the contents evidence, if you use MESIC, you have your blueprint, and you can ask give one patient on history taking, one patient on performance, one patient on examination, and also the areas. One area is internal medicine, chest pain. Another area is surgery, abdominal mass. So the more areas and more patients, that is the one which makes which is important in making it more reliable. Okay, so it means that even if you use the long case, which we say is subjective, right? If you have enough long cases, the word here is on enough. If you sample enough using the long case, you can get it to be reliable as the OSCE. For example, in this table, you have a look. These are the methods: multiple choice, temperature, long case examination. Let's say the multiple choice in 1 hour, they go by hour because to make it comparable. This is the reliability, 0.6. Right? Long case, 0. It's not too bad also, right?
Yeah, macam more better than Uski.
Because it's 1 hour, okay? Tapi dia warning, don't just use this single study, okay? But if you go up, then it goes higher. So even long case, it goes higher.
Okay, sir.
But then if you look at the multiple choice, 4 hours dia dah plateau dah. It already plateau. But the more you sample, the main lesson in this table is again sampling. Meaning, even if you use, this is the black sheep. The people always say, "Oh, long case is terrible. It's so subjective." Blah 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 blah. But if you use it wisely and enough sampling, it can be reliable. Equally reliable to other methods. The issue is it feasible?
Yeah. Time.
Time. Someone calculated money. I remember reading one article. It using statistical formula. They predict to get just by using long case alone, to get a reliability of 0.9, if I'm not mistaken, you need 19 cases. If in one sitting, I don't think we can do that. The students will go crazy. We will go crazy. Okay. But it can be done if, let's say, we spread out over 1 year.
It's like a formative.
Yeah. Each posting they go through in 1 year, you have one long case. It's possible. So it's in the way you design the assessment rather than anything else. That's what it said just now. It's a instructional design problem. Okay. Let's go. We have 7 more minutes. Okay. It says here the warning: the comparative data should not be interpreted too strictly as only a single study, right? Lesson is that the important point is to illustrate that all methods require substantial sampling, and methods which are less structured or standardized, such as the oral examination, long case, mini CAI, etc., the word is can be entirely or almost as reliable as other more structured and objective measures. Okay, so it says there, this insight, how is it important? Is that no method is inherently unreliable, and any method can be sufficiently reliable provided sampling is appropriate across conditions of measurement. Okay. So as related to that, no need for us to banish from our assessment toolbox instruments that are rather more subjective, nor perfectly standardized. So we cannot say, I don't want long cases anymore, or I don't want long essays because it's old-fashioned. It is very subjective, blah blah blah. Because remember our lesson USN that I learned, when we banish the long case, students will disappear from the wards. So we must be wise in our choice of assessment. Okay. So it says that conversely, we should not be deluded into thinking that as long as we see to it that our assessment toolbox contains structured and standardized instruments, the reliability of our measurement will automatically be guaranteed. No, it's no guarantee. You must. So the answer is it depends on how we use our assessments. Okay, that's the reliability. As I said, if you just remember reliability sampling, you must pay attention to sampling. That's good enough. Okay. You have class after this, right?
Postpone, Dr. Nick. Postpone to
Dr. Nick,
other day.
postpone. Okay,
Yeah.
can I take about 20 minutes?
I'm okay.
Boleh?
Ashraf, are you okay?
Ashraf, okay?
I'm bringing my mother-in-law to police station because of
Okay. All right.
some
Now, is it?
issues. Yes. No,
Okay,
maybe
okay.
around 11 o'clock. Around 11.
Around 11. So if I take about 20 minutes, that should be okay?
Yeah, 20 minutes.
20 minutes, huh? Okay, let's go quickly. So issue of validity. What's important is that we know what's validity now. It says here is the realism, the assessment of higher cognitive abilities has progressed from the use of realistic simulations to short and focused vignettes. So now it is getting more and more real. The issue is authenticity. Okay. Now people are focusing more on authenticity. And it says here moving from the examination hall, even the OSCE, towards day-to-day practice. Okay. So now people are looking at WPBA, workplace-based assessment. So that is getting the thing which is in vogue now. Okay. And lastly, in the validity, a second development is that the integration of competencies such as professionalism, teamwork, communication skill is it's quite popular, right? But things like teamwork, professionalism, and other skills are so-called the generic or the soft skills. People now realize that it is very important for us to assess these things as well. Okay. The others, I think you have a look at yourself. Okay. Let's see. We will discuss this later in our class in OSCE. Is that OSCE research has shown that more global ratings provide a more faithful reflection of expertise than detailed checklists. So don't think that because the checklist is very structured, it is more objective, therefore it's more reliable. No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. Sometimes a more global rating, which requires expertise in part of the rater, is more important. Okay. We will discuss more on that in our class regarding performance assessment, and this is very important. A fact that supports the argument that we need multiple methods in order to make a good job of assessment. So always we go for more methods combined and more sampling, which goes for better assessment. All right. Sorry, this one. The final trend is competence movement. General proficiency such as ability to work in a team, metacognitive skills, professional behavior, ability to
Professional.
reflect and carry out self-appraisal, etc. People are now realizing that a doctor is not just clinically competent, but have to be competent in other areas as well. Right? Like what Ashraf was saying yesterday, that sometimes a very highly competent doctor clinically, but he or she cannot speak to patients. They do not know how to talk to patients. As you know, one of the main causes of litigation, patients suing doctors, is communication. Simple issue. It's not because the doctors are not skillful or whatever.
Yes.
Because doctors do not speak to patients. They do not tell the possible complications. They do not inform whatever the patients do not know what's going on. Okay, right. So, yeah, I think the impact on learning you read on your own. Okay, there's a few observations here. Because I apologize. Always these two classes, validity, liability. Maybe next year I make 3 classes. Okay. Okay. So at last they emphasize that assessment is actually instructional design. It's like how you design your curriculum. When you design your curriculum, you must think of how you design your assessment. That's the important thing, because okay, we want students to behave in a way that we want. So it's important because we know assessment has a steering effect. Okay. The others, I think you all read lah. All right. There are many red dots here, but I don't think it's fair for me to go on blabbering and I don't think Ashraf is paying attention now. Because he has other things on his mind. Okay. All right. So, but I think you get the idea. Now, the overall idea of utility and the various components: validity, reliability, educational impact, acceptability, and feasibility, and how they interact with each other. Okay. And you know now what's the important issues in validity, reliability. Not to say that the others are not important, but simply that I don't think we should spend more. Education impact is one whole chapter in chapter 17 in the book. If you are interested, you can go read it. Okay. Acceptability and feasibility. Okay, I think any burning questions? You can always ask me later, but if you want to ask it now.
No from me so far. Okay.
Dr. Urush, I apologize. I do not know whether you're following or not or whatever. Okay, Alhamdulillah. I suppose this is a bad example of pedagogy, just one way. Maybe I need to
Only
improve
one way.
in my pedagogy, inshallah. Give me the feedback later. Huh? Okay, if not, thank you very much for your patience. Of course, you. Okay, for tomorrow you have a class, right? In the morning.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, Ashraf and Farhana, can you write one multiple true false question in any subject you want, and one single best answer question in any subject you want, and one essay question in any subject you want.
Okay.
All right. If possible,
Necessarily related, right? Dr. Fuad, in between these three?
No, not necessary.
Okay.
Not necessary. And if possible, have it as long as you can share it on the screen.
Okay.
You can type it or write it, whatever. Okay, guys, I let you go. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you so
Okay.
much, Dr. Fuad.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, assalamu subhanakallahumma bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.